Hey everyone, welcome back to the Listen Up Girl podcast, the podcast where I break down the biggest LGBTQ stories, cultural moments, and political headlines shaping our community and the world around us. I am your host, Zach Randles-Friedman, and today we've got a packed episode. We're talking about protest plan at Chick-fil-A as the company prepares to relaunch in the United Kingdom, a high-profile political runoff in Texas that could reshape representation in Congress, and a troubling new law debate in Ghana that could dramatically expand criminal penalties against LGBTQ plus people. We have so much more, and later in the show, we'll touch on some pop culture headlines, including new music rumors from Madonna and a developing report involving Britney Spears. So let's get into it. Chick-fil-A faces protests as it returns to the United Kingdom. Fast food chain Chick-fil-A is once again facing backlash from LGBTQ activists as the company prepares to relaunch in the United Kingdom. Campaigners say they plan to protest outside the brand's new London location when it opens this week, pointing to the company's long and controversial history of funding organizations that have opposed LGBTQ plus rights. The restaurant group confirmed back in 2023 that it intends to expand across Britain, with future locations planned in London, Belfast, Leeds, and Liverpool as part of a broader investment in the UK market. But the expansion has revived criticism that has followed Chick-fil-A for more than a decade. Back in 2011, reports revealed that Chick-fil-A Foundation had donated nearly $3 million to organizations that were actively working to block marriage equality in the United States. Following up reporting suggests these donations continue to increase in the years followed. In 2021, the company announced it would stop directing funds to anti-LGBTQ groups. However, later investigations claimed donations had continued indirectly, including contributions to the National Christian Charitable Foundation, a group that has publicly advocated for rolling back LGBTQ equality protections. As for activists in the UK, that history hasn't been forgotten, and it's not the first time Chick-fil-A has attempted to establish itself in Britain. In 2019, the company opened a location in Reading, but the restaurant closed just 6 months later after protests erupted, and the shopping center hosting it decided not to renew the lease. Now Chick-fil-A is reattempting a return. LGBT campaigners said they intend to make their concerns visible from day one. The situation highlights a broader question companies increasingly face when expanding internationally: how fast political and social positions can shape brand perception in new markets. Next, we go to Texas. A historic Texas political showdown heads to runoff. In Texas politics, a rare and unusual Democratic primary battle is now heading to an election runoff. Congresswoman Julie Johnson and former U.S. Representative Colin Allred will face off again after neither candidate secured a more than 50% of the vote in the Democratic primary for Texas' 33rd congressional district. With roughly three-quarters of the ballots counted, Allred has leading the race with 44.8% of the vote, while Johnson trailed with 33.7%, according to early reports reported by NBC. Because neither candidate reached the majority threshold required to win outright, the voters will return to polls on May 26 to decide the nominee. The race is drawing national attention because it's one of the several contests shaped by mid-decade redistricting, which dramatically reshaped the political map in Texas and forced several incumbents into new districts. Julie Johnson already made history as the first openly LGBTQ person elected in Congress from Texas and from the broader South U.S. She currently represents Texas' 32nd District, a seat that was previously held by Colin Allred before he vacated it to run for Senate in 2024. The Senate bid ultimately failed, and Johnson later won election to the House seat he left behind. So let's see what happens for there, because the winner of the May runoff will go on to represent one of the state's most politically significant and rapidly changing districts. Now we go to Ghana, where it considers sweeping anti-LGBTQ law. In West Africa, lawmakers in Ghana are preparing to vote on a controversial piece of legislation that human rights advocates say could dramatically escalate the criminalization of LGBTQ plus people. The proposed measure, known as the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values bill would significantly expand penalties targeting LGBTQ plus individuals and even people who support them. If passed, the law would require citizens to report LGBTQ people to authorities, essentially turning neighbors and community members into informants. It would also allow government to dissolve organizations that support LGBTQ rights, cutting off critical support networks for vulnerable communities. Another major concern, the law could extend liability into digital spaces, meaning that people could face penalties for online expression or sharing information about LGBTQ plus issues. Advocacy groups warns the consequences could be severe, potentially leading to increased violence, fear, and isolation for LGBTQ Ghanaians. The vote could take place in the coming weeks and is already drawing international scrutiny. Now we go into a trans teacher says Florida laws forced her to leave. A transgender teacher in Florida says she is preparing to leave the state because the new law means she can no longer safely teach, being open about who she is. The teacher's name is Soras Stone, a 32-year-old high school teacher in Orlando, says recent restrictions prevent her from using pronouns that match her gender identity. She also says she must remain silent if students intentionally misgender her. According to Stone, speaking up in those moments could potentially cost her her teaching license. She says, if I defend myself, she said in an interview with Advocate, I could have my teaching certificate revoked. The restrictions stem from legislation introduced under the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, including the widely debated Parental Rights and Education Act, which limits how discussions around sexual orientation and gender identity can occur in schools. Stone began transitioning in 2022 and says she's now constantly worries about saying the wrong thing in class. She says, I'm always thinking, is it the moment that ends up on the national television and gets my license taken away? Despite loving teaching, she and her wife are now preparing to relocate to Maryland, where stronger legal protections exist for transgender people. This is my home, Stone said about Florida, but I've already come out and I can't go back into the closet. Very sad they will not let people just live their authentic life. I hate that. Next, North Carolina, Democrats reject anti-trans candidates. In North Carolina, several Democratic lawmakers who supported Republican bills restricting transgender rights were defeated in primary elections this week. Voters rejected incumbents Carla Cunningham and Nassef Majid, who both backed legislative targeting transgender athletes. They lost their races by significant margins to pro-LGBTQ challengers Rodney Sadler and Valera Levy. Other lawmakers who supported similar legislation, including Shelley Willingham and Michael Ray, were also defeated. For many LGBTQ advocates, this result signals a shift within the Democratic voters towards stronger support for transgender rights. The primary suggests that within parts of the party base, support for anti-trans policies may now carry serious political consequences. God, I hope this is a sign for what's coming in midterms. People are finally getting out to vote and voting for people that actually care about other people. So amazing. Next, Tim Walz pushes back at congressional hearing. In Washington, a tense moment during a congressional hearing went viral after Minnesota Governor Tim Walz refused to engage in a political debate about transgender identity. During a House oversight hearing, Representative Nancy Mace abruptly asked Walz the now familiar culture war question, what is a woman? Rather than taking the bait, Walz responded bluntly, I'm the governor of Minnesota, Congresswoman. He said, I'm not here to be your prop for your obsession. Supporters later praised Walz for declining to let the hearing shift into what many viewed as an unrelated ideological debate. The exchange quickly spread across social media and highlighted a broader reality in American politics. Discussions about transgender people often surface in places far removed from policies being debated. Before we wrap up, I have a couple of quick headlines from the world of entertainment. First, pop icon Madonna is reportedly filming what insiders described as the most daring music video of her career in the United Kingdom. The video will accompany the first single from her rumored upcoming album, Confessions Part 2, produced by long-term collaborator Stuart Price, who also worked on her 2005 hit Confessions of a Dance Floor. The production reportedly features more than 40 dancers, choreography that renowned creator partner Damien Gillette, and acrobatic performers from Cirque du Soleil. So I can't wait for that. I think it's going to be amazing, and I am so excited about her new album. I keep reading more and more and more positive things about this album. It has been years since she's come out with that album, and I think it's going to be a huge, huge hit. And my last story, according to reports out of California, Britney Spears was briefly arrested on suspicion of DUI before later being released. Details are still developing, and I will share those with you tomorrow in our LGBTQ plus news. And that's it for the episode today for Listen Up Girl. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, subscribe, and share the podcast so more people can stay informed about the stories that are shaping our community. And remember, LGBTQ plus news doesn't exist in a vacuum. These stories connect to politics, culture, human rights, and everyday people's lives around the world. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay informed, stay loud, and keep listening.